Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to another Once in a Wild Wednesday, where we bring the zoo to you virtually via live stream each and every Wednesday evening, of course, at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And we appreciate everybody watching out there, whether it's your first time or your 100th time watching Once in a Wild programming. Just kidding, it hasn't been quite 100, but we're getting there. So if you guys do want to watch any of our past videos, I recommend heading over to our YouTube channel and subscribing over there. That helps us out quite a bit, and clicking on that playlist that says live streams. We've got a lot more content than that, but just letting you know and plugging myself a little bit there. So welcome. We're glad to see everybody chiming in. Hello out there, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We're really happy to have you here at Once in a Wild Wednesday, and today's going to be another fun one. We've got a few animals to meet you guys. Last week, we went over all of the rabbit information that I could possibly think of, and we went for almost 2 hours full of rabbit information about their care and pertinent to Easter coming up, right? I do want to reiterate again that rabbits are not Easter gifts and shouldn't be. They can be, I guess, but they shouldn't be associated as Easter gifts, and neither are pets or toys either. We don't believe in that here at Once in a Wild, and we want to make sure and educate you guys. I know Easter is right around the corner. Speaking of which, look out for a really fun collaboration with us at Once in a Wild, Sandor the Flemish Giant Rabbit, and Clay over at the Wild Side with Clay, which I'm sure will share as well, because it's a collaboration video. We need to make sure and share all of our collaborations as well. Also, keep your eyes open for a fun podcast interview that I did this morning with Alexis from Animals Anonymous and a whole bunch of other companies that she owns and works for and whatnot. And she has a couple of podcasts that are really awesome, and I will definitely make sure and share that as well when it comes out. But I just did that this morning, so I'm sure it'll be a day or so before that happens. So it's good to see each and every one of you chiming in. And yeah, so we're theming it today with axolotl stuff. I do want to remind you guys that we do have stickers at onceinawild.com. And I'm wearing one of our shirts as well, which you can, of course, also get as a t-shirt. We are working on our t-shirt situation, if you will. T-shirts are a little bit more challenging than stickers, but for now we do have stickers and pins with the same design. If you guys would like one, you can get them at onceinawild.com. All proceeds go to our animal care. And like every single Once in a Wild Wednesday, this show is free of charge. We don't charge anything to watch, of course, but you do have options to donate to our little zoo, which is our mobile zoo, by the way. If you're not familiar with Once in a Wild, we are a mobile zoo that brings the zoo to classrooms, birthday parties, events of all sorts, public meetings, and animal talks and education, all sorts of stuff with our animal ambassadors. And we are based in San Antonio, Texas, but we can also bring the zoo to you virtually, of course, just like we do today on our live streams. But we can also customize your Zoom room animal encounters as well. And all the information is at onceinawild.com. If you would like to donate to our little zoo and keep our animals fed and enriched and all sorts of things, hi Ghost, you can donate any amount of your choosing to any of our donation options, which are Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. All of those links are in the description box down below. And you can also donate Amazon wish list items, which have been pre-selected, thanks to everybody who's already donated via all those other options I just listed, and also for Amazon wish list. That is greatly appreciated. Every little bit helps and keeps us going. So we really appreciate that. And the very best way to help us out is by booking your very own animal encounter, whether they be virtual or in person here in San Antonio and surrounding cities. So without further ado, before I forget, let us begin officially with Once in a Wild Wednesday, you guys. Once again, we hope you've had a wonderful week. And like I said, last time we talked all about rabbit care and all the things that you need to know about owning rabbits, or whether or not you should think about getting a rabbit in your life for Easter or not. We say no, just because it shouldn't be a, well, how do I word this? It shouldn't be an impulse buy when you bring any animal companion into your life, even like a dog or cat, any sort of animal, even like small mammals like hamsters and even rabbits and all sorts of things, fish even. And we want to make sure you guys are doing your very best to take the best care of your animals, of course, and do all your prior research so you can take the best care of them. If you need any advice, please let me know. I would love to help you. Our contact information is down below. That is what I'm here for, you guys. I am a pet care expert as well as animal care expert in general, so I don't mind helping you guys out at all. So let's see who's chiming in so far. Hello, Ricardo. And hello, Donna. So far, so good. And I do have Wendy here as well. She's actually commenting in other ways down below. But if you guys do have any comments or questions about any of the animals that we meet today or anything at all that I can help you with, please let me know in the comments and I will do my best to answer them right here on the live stream. And if I don't have time to answer them on the live stream or I don't see them for some reason, I usually try to go back and answer your questions the old-fashioned way with typing in the answers. And before I forget as well, we do have one event coming up quickly on Saturday, this Saturday, which is going to be the 2nd of April, right? Is Saturday the 2nd? I believe it is. No, it's the 3rd. The 3rd of April, correct? I'm correcting myself. The 3rd of April, which is this Saturday, right before Easter Sunday, because that's the 4th. That's how I remember that. So Easter Sunday is the 4th this year, right? On Saturday, the 3rd, we will be having a collaboration with Once Upon a Party, our very good friends out there at that company who are Disney experts, who have all sorts of Disney princesses and characters that can meet you guys for parties and all sorts of gatherings. But we are collaborating with them and some other things happening out there for a spring extravaganza is what it's called. And that's going to be at the Marriott over in New Braunfels. And if you guys have the ability to, you have to get your tickets ahead of time. There's only a few tickets left, if any. I sure hope there are some after me announcing this, but check on our website, onceinawild.com, which is right here for you guys, onceinawild.com. There you can see our events happening soon, which of course this one's coming up on Saturday. If you click on that little box that says it's a spring extravaganza, that's the name of the event, sorry. If you click on that box, that will take you to a link where the tickets are available. You must buy tickets ahead of time, I believe, and they are limited because this is a social distancing type event. We are outdoors, and some of our animals like Sandor the rabbit, Iggy the guinea pig and his friends. Let's see, the 2 tortoises, Frank and Shelton, are going to be there. Who else? Eddie the bearded dragon. And our ducks, Gansito and Lucas, are going to be out there as well. If you're wondering how our ducks are doing, they're doing fantastic. It's just really hard to bring them into the studio because they are huge now. They're like giant ducks. They're way bigger than this. They're like this big and very messy to bring into the studio. So maybe I will make some videos of the ducks soon so you can see them. Check out our TikTok because I do feature them on our TikTok quite a bit, which is at Once in a Wild Zoo if you're interested in our TikTok. If you need links to all of our social medias, it's at onceinawild.com, you guys. But please check out to see if there's any tickets left for that event coming up this Saturday at onceinawild.com. You can find that information. If there are no tickets left, I do apologize. There were a few left last time I checked. So just check it out and see. We'd love to see you out there. And we're looking forward to all our fans that are have already let us know that they're going to be out there. We're looking forward to finally meeting you guys in person. How fun. We're so happy to be doing in-person events again, right? So it's been quite the year, but we're keeping our chin up because things are getting a lot busier and a lot better every single day, right? And I certainly have been extremely busy these days. I don't know about you guys. I hope you're doing well. Yes, Once Upon a Party is going to be our collaboration partner for that. They are really awesome. If you haven't checked out Once Upon a Party yet, they are awesome. They are located in the San Antonio, Texas area as well. I believe they're in New Braunfels to be specific, but San Antonio, Texas area. And they can help you out with event planning as well as any Disney, Marvel, Star Wars theming you can think of, and all sorts of characters that can come out to your child's birthday party or your adult's birthday party. I'm sure it's available to anyone that would want to hire them. So check them out. They are fantastic. Check out our Instagram. There's a few really fun pictures of promotion for this event coming up. We're really excited to be out and about again. Can you tell? So anyway, so today we do have 3 animal ambassadors. Last week we just had 1 because we were talking all about rabbits. And guess what? I only have 1 rabbit here Once in a Wild, 1 giant rabbit. He is 22 pounds, but still only 1 individual. So we just met Sandor last week and had him out here the whole time. Check out our last video if you haven't already. It'll be on our playlist for live streams. And today we're going to meet 3 different animal ambassadors. And one of them is already out here on the table with me. It's Ghost. I think she heard me talking about her earlier. Hey, Ghost. Ghost is a beautiful golden albino axolotl. And axolotls are a type of amphibian, of course. If you don't know much about them, they are an entirely aquatic or water-dwelling amphibian. And all amphibians in the world come from the water originally because all amphibians come from eggs that are typically laid underwater, at least in some capacity. Even tree frogs and things like that will lay their egg either in water or in a little droplet or a puddle of water inside a plant or something like that. But they're all aquatic when they start their life. So amphibians start their life as an egg. It's a gooey, mushy egg. It doesn't really remind me of a chicken egg or anything like that. It is kind of like a jelly texture and very sticky. And typically those eggs are, of course, laid underwater, like I said, and they'll either stick to plants or they'll sink to the bottom of the body of water that they're laid in. And it will take some time if they're fertilized, and then they will hatch out. And amphibians start their life as a tadpole, which is a worm-like critter, right? You guys are familiar with what a tadpole looks like. It basically looks like a swimming worm with a giant head. And they eventually go through a metamorphosis process, which is kind of similar to like what a butterfly does, right? But instead of going into a cocoon, they just start changing. They completely change their entire body. They go from an aquatic animal to a terrestrial animal sometimes, or semi-aquatic for some amphibians, but for axolotls rather, they never leave the water. They stay in the water. But what they do is they will begin to grow legs, because they start as like a little worm with just a head and eyeballs and a mouth. And they grow legs. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they kind of get more adult features that look like a salamander, right? Because she is a salamander, just an aquatic one. But what happens with axolotls is they don't really metamorphosize any more than that. So they will start sprouting legs and arms, 4 legs total, right? Arm/leg. And they will grow bigger and bigger and bigger and just stay like this. So they're basically like big babies their whole life. They don't metamorphosize to have lungs to breathe air like other amphibians. They keep their tails because they are salamanders, but they also keep their paddle-like tail, whereas other salamanders, they either slightly lose the paddle-like structure of the tail for swimming, and they develop more of like a lizard-looking type tail. That's other salamanders, right? Like spotted salamanders and tiger salamanders and things like that. Those are really cool animals too. But salamanders in general can usually come out on dry land, or at least semi-wet land, right? And breathe air and with lungs. Whereas these guys never develop lungs, really. They keep their gills for breathing water. And that's what those fluffy things are on the side of her head here. Right here. Those red things are 3 gills on one side, and she's got 3 gills on the other side. They're very different than fish gills, but they are just like every other amphibian's gills when they're babies. All amphibians have gills like that. To my knowledge, they all look the same or similar, and they're kind of feathery gills, right? They're more external on the side of their face rather than like the flaps that we're used to with like fish. But if you take a look inside of a fish's scales, if you ever had an opportunity to see that, or if you've seen pictures of it, they are actually pretty similar. They have feathery structures too. They're just a little bit more streamlined and not like sticking out on the side of their face. But they retain their gills, they keep them, and that way they can maintain an aquatic lifestyle their entire life. They can metamorphosize in extreme stress situations, or if like the temperature changed to be too hot to survive in the water, or if something extreme happened. However, an axolotl doesn't live much at all after that metamorphosis happens, like other salamanders can. Once they metamorphosize into a land animal, potentially under extreme stress, they will not survive after that. So that's really unfortunate. So most of the time they're going to be fully aquatic. That's what makes them really, really special animals. Ghost is really active. Ricardo says Ghost is really active. Yeah, she's been swimming around like crazy today. Ghost has participated in 3 programs, including this one today, this morning with our podcast. So keep an eye out for our podcast that we'll probably post, and our collaboration. And as well as we did a school Zoom earlier today as well. And Ghost got to be involved with both of those things. So she's been in this display tank today, and it's kind of enriching for them. She was able to get some ice cold water, which they really like. These guys are cold weather animals. And we do, of course, keep their waters, their normal waters, nice and cool for them anyway. But I think, just having the change of environment and some nice ice cold water from the fridge, which is what I gave her, very spoiled. She really perked up and was eating treats. Got some treats for her that I'll feed to her in just a little bit for you guys as well. That's the best part, is like showing her eating. That's really fun. These guys are really special underwater salamanders that never really grow up. They just mature to be able to have babies, and they can lay eggs and everything if they're female. She's a female, and they lay many, many, many eggs each time that they lay them, but they never really develop into like a land or semi-land, semi-water type animal. So that makes them really, really, really special. They're also, unfortunately, a critically endangered species. These guys, there's not very many left in the wild. I don't know what the current number is, but it's not a lot. They're almost extinct in the wild. They're actually considered to be critically endangered, which on the scale of animals being from least concerned all the way to extinct, that is really pushing it towards extinct, especially in the wild. Now, these guys are quite numerous in the care of humans, and they do breed very easily. They have lots of babies each time, and they do very well in the care of humans in general because they're fairly easy to care for, and they don't really stress out too much in the care of humans. So a lot of people have them, and a lot of zoos and aquariums do breed and maintain the species to make sure that we're never going to lose them completely. But unfortunately, in the wild, they're not doing the best. So over the last 20 or so years, surveys have indicated that they've gone from around 6,000 per square kilometer to 35 per square kilometer, or now less probably, which is really, really bad. So that is a very rapid decline, but they have a lot against them in the wild. Number one, they are from a teeny tiny little area in Mexico City called the Xochimilco River Canal. And that is a very tiny little river canal system. The waters there, to answer your question, Wendy, are around 50 degrees, more or less, in Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius. I apologize to my Mexican viewers out there if you're watching, or anyone all over the world. We think in Fahrenheit. So it's around 50 degrees, more or less. Unfortunately, that temperature is rising nowadays, and they can't really tolerate temperatures over 75 or so, especially not like into the 80s. That would be much too warm for them. They thrive in temperatures of 55 to 60 degrees, maybe even 65 is fine too. They're just fine in the care of humans, especially because their conditions are very clean most of the time, as long as you're caring for them. But they prefer chilly waters. Even lower than 50 is fine with them. They like ice and everything. Like if I put ice cubes in there, man, she loves it. She's like, whoo, it's so nice and cool in here. They love cold temperature. So that is what they're dealing with in the wild, is a very tiny little section of cold river water, very cold and very murky, very specialized, so that they can hide and everything. In the wild, they don't look like ghosts. They're very dark, just like Gremlin. You might have seen Gremlin on one of our other programs. We do have 3 axolotls: Ghost, Gremlin, and Goblin. Goblin is a very, very small, so I don't really show Goblin that much, but Gremlin has been on the show several times because you can see him really well. Gremlin is a male, and Gremlin's our wild type axolotl. We have another video in our live stream playlist where you can actually see Gremlin not too long ago, a few live streams ago, a few weeks ago, and you can see the difference. And that is what they look like in the wild, but the habitat is very cold, very dark, murky, specialized. They hide in there, and they have their own little ecosystem in there, right? It's really similar to if an animal lives on a tiny island, they have a lot of pressure on them to survive and adapt and maintain and everything on a tiny island too, because there's really no escape for the most part from an island. A lot of animals that come from island or island systems are endemic, or like you can only find them there on that island system. For example, a good example is Guam. Guam has a lot of issues with snakes right now. And a lot of those animals out there in Guam, the natural animals, cannot or have not adapted to the snakes that have been invasive to their islands, which means they don't belong there. So a lot of snakes have come in as either invasive on accident by humans bringing them in on ships and all sorts of things, planes, and they basically take over, and the animals there don't have any adaptations to stay safe. So an example is the Guam rail, which is a teeny tiny little flightless bird that lives in Guam, but there are many other species that are affected by those snakes and other reasons too that might affect those island animals. Similarly, the axolotl lives in kind of a cut off little canal, right? And they can't really escape or get out of it for whatever reason. I don't know if it's the flow of the river or what, but they're kind of like just in like a reverse island. It's like a water island, and that's already puts a lot of pressure on them because that's the only place they live in the entire planet. So that's a lot on them. Pollution is bad over there. At least it was for many, many years, right near the city of Mexico City. We love Mexico City. It's fantastic now, but for a long, long time, Mexico City was actually pretty polluted. I think a lot of people just know that for a fact. Over time, it's gotten a lot better, but because it's so close to Mexico City, and literally in Mexico City, but close to the city where humans are, a lot of pollution has snuck its way in there. And the waters are polluted with chemicals sometimes, or trash. Of course, trash affects every animal species on the planet. I can't even think of one that trash doesn't affect, unfortunately, especially plastic and even microplastics, which are plastic that you can barely see in the water. They can eat that and become full of plastic, and that's not good. Other issues are invasive species of their own. We talked about the Guam snakes, the issues with the snakes. These guys have invasive species of large fish like carp and tilapia, which don't belong there naturally. They were brought in for fishing purposes, for sport, and they can actually eat axolotls because those types of fish are really huge when they grow up. And if not fished or gotten out of there, they will just stay there and eat axolotls and all the food that axolotls thrive on and survive on. So that's another problem too. And there's so many more. Global warming and climate change, right? Increases the temperature of the water as well. It can also decrease the level of water too. So all the things are kind of against them. But like I said, luckily, the good thing is that axolotls probably will never go extinct fully, at least in the care of humans. They may go extinct in the wild, but the plan, as far as I understand it, with conservationists out there in Mexico and otherwise that are studying the axolotl and trying to maintain the species in the wild, they're trying to see if they can re-release them into other areas, not just Xochimilco. That's the original place that they come from, right? But it's who's to say they wouldn't do well in other habitats too that are just the same or very similar. So that's what they're kind of experimenting with. It's a long, painstaking process because they're also breeding a bunch of them to maintain genetics and the species. There's a lot that they have to do. But that is the good news. I don't think axolotls will ever go extinct as long as humans are keeping them. So that's a good thing. So the best thing you can do for them is support places that have them, especially zoos and aquariums that breed them and that are involved with those studies and all the things, and conservation in general for amphibians, right? Tanja, hi Tanja, so good to see you. Thinking about you all the time. Wow, she has gotten so big and beautiful. Thank you. Right now she's just showing her hind end, but I think she has gotten a little bigger, huh? I see her every day, so I may not notice as much as you guys. And Ricky says, hello, ghost. Erica, hi. She asks, is albinism common in the axolotl? That's a good question. Yes, it is, but only in human care. And albinism can occur in almost any animal species spontaneously in the wild too, just like randomly. But usually albino animals in general don't make it in the wild because it takes away all of their camouflage, number one. And some albino animals don't do well in the wild because of like sun exposure and all of those things as well. These guys really in the wild, they wouldn't really have a ton of sun exposure because their area they live in is very, very murky, muddy, kind of gross looking, just dirty looking, but it's just naturally how it is. It's a very murky system of water, very cold, right? They don't really see a lot of sun. So that wouldn't be the problem with this species, but they wouldn't really make it because they are unable to hide. And animals need to be able to hide for a lot of reasons, of course, from predators, right? These guys have a lot of predators, including other amphibians, fish, things like that, and also birds that eat amphibians and fish, like herons and other aquatic birds like that. And if they can't blend into the surroundings, they're going to be seen right away, even as little baby axolotls, right? And axolotls will unfortunately eat their own kind when they're not the same size. And even when they are the same size, just like frogs and other amphibians, they may try to cannibalize each other too. And they are normally solitary. Some people do have success raising them together. I personally don't do that. I haven't had great experiences with that in the past, so I don't do that anymore. Axolotls, all of ours are separated, solitary, and I don't think they mind at all. But to each their own, I guess. You do you. But they, in the wild, if there was a white axolotl baby, I mean, it would be lunch in 2 seconds, I think. So it is common in the care of humans, though. They are bred for their special colors, like golden albino, normal albino leucistic, which is dark eyes with kind of a white or pink body, and pink gills. Those are the most famous ones, I think, the leucistics, because they're on like a lot of art and fun drawings and t-shirts and things, stickers, all sorts of social media and comics and things now. They're very famous, which is great. The more famous an animal is, the more people like them. and the more they want to save them, right? But not everybody knows what they're looking at when they see those cartoons, or that they're a real creature and not a Pokemon or something, right? And they don't understand that they are a critically endangered species and a very important one too. But it is fairly common in the care of humans. Those guys are pretty popular as far as being bred and things like that. There's other colorations as well, like mosaics, which are black and white. There are all sorts of like melanistic ones where they're like stark black, which is really cool. Look it up. There's really neat colors of axolotls nowadays. Just like almost any animal in the care of humans, after time, a lot of times breeders and people that like to, they know their genetics and things like that, they can selectively breed their animals. And if they're going to be kept in the care of humans, it doesn't really matter what color they are, right? So the more power to you out there, axolotl breeders and other breeders of animals. The temperature of the water, I think I answered that already. It's typically 50s and 60s. If there was another one in there, would they fight? I don't know if they would fight. That's a good question. But one of them may be hungry enough to try to eat one another, even if it doesn't fit in their mouth. These guys will try to swallow and eat things. And axolotls do actually have pretty, I don't want to say fragile body parts, but of course their gills are kind of fragile if they were to get eaten off. And also their limbs can break and they can get injuries and they can break their tails as well. However, it is really nice to be an axolotl. Even if you get an injury like that or you lose a body part of any kind, you can regenerate them. That is the coolest thing about axolotls, in my opinion. I think they're cool all around and they're amazing animals, one of my favorites. But they can regenerate literally any body part and heal really quickly any body part as well. So if she were to lose an arm or severely injure her tail or injure her gill or lose a gill or even have a chunk bitten out of her by a big predator like, I don't know, a big fish or something like that. Who knows? Most fish swallow their food whole, but you never know. So they might take a bite out of her in the wild. They can grow back whatever was lost. And they literally just go back to normal. It doesn't even take very long either. Their healing process is very quick. As long as they're able to still eat and function a little bit, they can regenerate. Now, I don't know if they necessarily have to eat, but that's what I assume in order to get the protein and everything they need to be able to have enough protein to regenerate quickly. But they could probably regenerate slowly, even if they weren't able to eat. But they can regenerate their brain, their heart, anything, as long as they have a body remaining that's healthy enough to keep going. They're incredible animals. And for that reason, they've actually been in the care of humans for a lot longer than other animals because of studying them. So studying them in science, and I say that, but there's a lot of animals, of course, been kept in the care of humans. But as far as for conservation purposes, they were actually kept in the care of humans prior to that, prior to conservation efforts to save them for scientific study, because they're trying to study to see if they can apply some of those regenerative abilities to apply it to human medicine. Because how cool would it be if people no longer needed organ transplants? They could just literally regenerate your organs. Or if you happen to injure your arm or lose an arm or anything like that, you could just regenerate that, or an eye, or whatever you needed. That would be absolutely amazing. But you are right. She is an albino. Back to what you were asking. She is a golden albino. Normal albinos, regular albinos actually have red eyes, and she has golden eyes. It blends right into her golden head there. I know it's actually a little bit bright in here. If I do that, you can see how very yellow she is, and see that her eyes are almost the same color as her head, right? Turn that light back on so I look a little better. That is really amazing. I agree. And it just depends on, Wendy's asking, how long does the regeneration process take? I think it just depends. And I don't have a ton of experience watching them regenerate, but I know it's pretty quick. I mean, it's a lot quicker than you would think, and a lot quicker than even like a lizard would regrow their tail. These guys could lose their tail just like anything else, and their tail would grow back, I mean, in a matter of a couple weeks. Whereas a lizard's tail, like for example, a tegu can lose their tail and regenerate the tail. Our tegu's tail took about a year to grow back fully. That's a long time. These guys, it's like a few weeks and they're done. They're good to go. That's pretty amazing and a great survival technique when you get injured. So I'm going to feed her, some treats. Axolotls are carnivores, like I think I mentioned. They can be cannibals, but they're also a little bit of a glutton. So they'll kind of take any opportunity to eat whatever fits into their mouth, like most fish, right? It's a size issue. And as long as they're stimulated to eat something, they will see it as food if it's alive or not alive sometimes. They have a great sense of smell. So I'm going to feed her some worms first, and then I'm going to show you what she normally eats as well, which is like a pellet diet. And it smells really strong. It's like a fishy smell for all sorts of aquatic animals. It's a carnivorous pellet for them. It has a lot of vitamins and minerals for them. And they can smell that as well. So as far as their senses go, they don't have ears that we know of. We don't think that they can hear anything. But they can feel vibrations in the water. So that's very sensitive. Their sense of touch. Come here. Come here. So usually will kind of see me. They can see. Come here. I don't know how well an albino axolotl can see, but you can see that she sees me. I don't know if you can see her responding. Nope. She's out of view for you guys. Come on, ghost. I'm going to see if she'll come back. And they can also smell. So smell, sight, touch. I don't know if they can taste or not. That's a good question. Don't know. I'm just going to gently boop her back over here. Boop, boop, boop. Woo! Can you come this way? All right. Good job. Bonk. Okay. Would you like a treat? I bet you would. Come and get the treat. Oh, yeah. Oh, you missed. Oh, you missed again. There you go. Not the most graceful eaters, but I think they're awfully cute. And how cute is she? She's so cute. I think they're such cute little personalities, and she really does look like a floating ghost, doesn't she? If you guys have any other questions, please let me know. Again, we're meeting Ghost the Axolotl. We're giving her some mealworms for a treat. Can you see the worm? Ricky's favorite animal, the worm. And a lot of animals eat worms, right? And most amphibians are carnivores. But fun fact, most amphibians as babies, when they're tadpoles, they can eat both algae, plants, and other animals. A lot of them eat mosquito larvae and other tiny, tiny little bugs. But a lot of amphibian babies also eat algae and other plants in the water. And when they grow up, they end up being carnivores. So they change not only how they breathe most of the time, not this species, but like frogs will change how they breathe with lungs. They will change their entire digestion, how they function with eating a carnivorous meal and diet. That's what I meant. They'll change their lifestyle. I mean, the metamorphosis to me of a amphibian in general is absolutely mind-blowing. And the fact that this one can regenerate their body parts, like a superhero over here. Pretty cool. It looks dark when she came up here to eat, or came up to eat. Is her nose dark? That's what you're asking. No, not really. It's the same color as the rest of her. Her mouth is a little darker on the inside. Let's see. Oh my goodness, so aggressive. Oh, okay. Did you drop the worm or did you get it? I cannot tell. So her nails are actually darker than the rest of her body. She has grayish, darkish nails. And the inside of her mouth is just like a little bit gray as well. So I don't know what you're seeing, if it's a reflection or something. But no, she's all the same color pretty much. She is slightly see-through because she's so light. I can see inside of her. There's like organs and things that I can see, which is really cool. If I shone a light behind her, I bet I could see even better. And then she has the bright red gills right now. So the gills do change colors. The more active she is, the brighter the gills, because that shows you that she's actually breathing more and more active. The more oxygenated the gills, the more red they are. And that goes for fish too. So if she's just sitting dormant at the bottom and just like resting or whatever, I don't know if she wouldn't really go to sleep because her eyes are always open. She doesn't have any eyelids. Like snakes and things, they don't have eyelids. So that's another thing that most amphibians gain when they go through metamorphosis is eyelids. That's another thing that changes about them. Pretty awesome. They're the neatest creatures. But if she's just hanging out at the bottom and resting and not doing much, her gills will be the same color as the rest of her body. So like that golden light pink that she is. And then as she's breathing more and more and more, they will become red with oxygen. That shows you that she's been active. Get it, Ghost. Get it. Good job, Ghost. Look at her floating. You said maybe it was her mouth. Yeah, I think it was. I think that's what you saw. But it could be also reflections and things in the room. She is, of course, behind glass. Here's a good question. How big is Ghost? Is she average size for an adult? Yeah, Ghost is around 4 or 5 years old, I think now. If I look back at her birthday, and she's around 8 or 10 inches long, maybe 8.5 to 9. They can get up to 10 or more inches long. I've seen larger axolotls than that, but it's kind of rare. But she's pretty average for an axolotl of an adult age. Yes, yes, yes. Most axolotls are adults in their first year, so it doesn't take them that long to grow up. 1 or 2 years at the most, depending on how much food they're getting and whatnot, just like all cold-blooded type animals. You're asking, why doesn't she have a rock or something to rest on? Sometimes I put different things in her habitat. This is just a display tank. So I don't put a ton in there though, because a lot of times on shows, especially, you know, when I have her on the live stream and things, of course, if I put something in there, she'll hide behind it and then you can't see her and I'm having to shuffle things around. So it's just kind of bare for now to make sure that she's in view, but this is not what she lives in. This is a very small tank compared to what she has behind the scenes. And she has all sorts of plants and rocks and caves and fun things to play with. And hide under and be super goofy on top of. She is really funny. She actually will plank on top of things and like be floating midway in her habitat, and she's a ham. But normally she does have lots of things to play on. But I found with the live stream, all these plants are actually behind the tank, so she doesn't hide behind them too much. I've got a couple like draped in a little bit, as you can see, but it's just a little technique that I've used learning over the last year of all the live streams I've done. I've done over 70 of them. That when I use the axolotl, sometimes, or I show the axolotl, that they'll tend to like hide behind things, so it just makes it a little harder to see her. So that's the only reason. No particular other reason. She could totally have fun things in her tank if I wanted, but I think this looks really nice on camera. Look at her. She's so cool. Let's see how long she is. From here to there, a little bit bigger than I thought. She's around this big. Cool. Around maybe 9 inches. Maybe we'll measure her soon. So that was our beautiful albino axolotl. And again, not a color you would see in nature, but a pretty common color in the care of humans. And today I thought I would bring 2 other animals as well that are not the common color in the wild as well. But they do, of course, have wild counterparts that you could see different colors of. And most animals in the wild, not all, but most, have some sort of camouflage or color that makes sense for them to hide. There are, of course, exceptions to that, like the California king snake, for example, that is black and white. The skunk that is black and white. Those guys don't really blend into things. They want to stand out for warning purposes. I'm trying to think of other examples. Let me know if you can think of other examples of animals that stand out. Animals like parrots are usually really bright colored. But if you think about it, parrots are typically in like a very dense jungle type situation, or at least in a tree. So the tree will kind of like, you know, blend them into the natural patterns of the tree and the shadows of the forest and all that. So they blend in quite well. But there are a few animals out there that stand out as opposed to blending in. But most of them do blend in. But in the care of humans, breeders and scientists and all sorts of animal people have been able to selectively breed animals for special colors. You may feed her one of her pellets. It's just a dry pellet. Has a lot of good nutrients in it. She's so ready for the pellet. She likes it. You got only part of it though. Here you go. Oh yeah, she got the rest of it. So they're very enthusiastic when they eat, aren't they? And sometimes they miss the target, and that is okay. I'm going to leave the rest of them in here floating for her if she wants to come up and get them. That'll be fun to watch. So our next animal is another animal that you would see in the wild sometimes, but not this coloration. So let me put away everything that I needed for Ghost. Take a little sip of water. Ghost is going to show her best side right now. And we're going to meet a really cool snake next. Would you like to meet a snake? Snakes are one of my favorite animals, of course. I love snakes a lot. And this species is not normally this color in the wild, are they? I'm going to turn this light down ever so slightly. That's a little better. Actually, I'm going to leave it right there. This is Princess, and Princess is a ball python. But as you can see, she is patternless for the most part. She has little freckles on her body. And she is white for the most part. She's kind of an ivory colored. And she even has, well, dirtiness on her head. Something on your head. You might be getting ready to shed as well. Princess does have a little bit of marking on her head, which is a little bit common for this morph of ball pythons. When you look at ball python morphs, you can literally see hundreds of different types of patterns and colors and really cool, awesome things that you can find that through selective breeding, breeders and other reptile enthusiasts have come up with really awesome colorations for ball pythons, very, very commonly seen in the care of humans, whether they be pets or in zoos or some kind of animal ambassadors, but they are very, very common pet snakes. And I think they're pretty good pet snakes for the right family. This is a ivory ball python. She is ivory colored, so easy to remember. She is not an albino though, because if you take a look, she does not have red eyes. Albinism indicates that they would have red eyes or very little color in their eyes. Like Ghost has like reddish gold eyes, right? She's a golden albino, but her eyes are still on the red tinge. They're definitely not dark. If Ghost had dark eyes, she would be considered to be a leucistic. This is a form of leucistic. Sorry, Princess, I didn't mean to startle you. This is a form of leucistic, but specifically this morph, somebody named the ivory morph. And that was just whoever came up with it in the first place was able to come up with that name. Because for ball python, there are several different examples of leucistics, which is just light with dark eyes, right? But she is really cool, right? She's very soft, very beautiful. A lot of people really enjoy getting to know Princess over other snakes for some reason because she is this light white color. So when we do our animal exposure therapy, it was just one of our services that we provide here at Once in a Wild. That is basically for people that aren't comfortable with certain animals. So like spiders, bugs, snakes, especially all sorts of animals that maybe you are just a little bit nervous around. We can actually get you used to them through baby steps. And sometimes Princess will join us for some of that because she's a great handling animal. She's very sweet, very passive. This is a almost never biting type snake in general. A ball python are really, really passive snakes. That's why they're popular as pets and other animal ambassadors and things like that. And for some reason, having no pattern and being this beautiful white color, a lot of people, they kind of ease up around Princess. They're like, oh, well, she's, this pretty color, or lack of color. So she doesn't look like a wild animal. And for some reason, that makes a lot of people a lot more comfortable and facing their fears, which I find so interesting and in a psychological level, right? In the wild, a ball python will have a very, very kind of camouflage looking pattern. In fact, it looks just like camo to me. And that makes a lot of sense because as a wild animal, they do need to blend into things. This animal would definitely probably not make it. I'm going to say definitely in long term would probably not make it in the wild because they would stick out like a sore thumb, especially since this animal is not a very large species. And they're also not a very aggressive species. They're quite timid as their personality goes. Now, one thing that might help them if they were albino or white, and I'm sure it's happened in history sometime spontaneously. I'm sure there's been an albino ball python. Albino ball pythons, by the way, still have a pattern and they're yellow and white instead of just all white like this. So she is not an albino. And she also has dark eyes instead of red eyes. But I'm sure that can happen spontaneously. And who's to say one hasn't survived? One thing that would help this species in the wild is they do tend to live underneath things. So even if this animal were white and they stayed like underneath in a burrow or underneath a cave of some sort, whether it be their own cave or a cave that they've adopted from another animal or a fallen tree or something that they're underneath their whole life, then maybe they could, slightly make it. But otherwise, they wouldn't really do very well in the wild. But in the care of humans, it doesn't really matter because she's got all her needs provided to her. She doesn't have to worry about hiding and hunting, right? She gets all her food delivered to her by me. And they would have a camouflage pattern though and blend in very nicely. Ball pythons though are known to be a ball python, B-A-L-L, because they ball up into a kind of a pretzel shaped pattern, but they kind of look like a little ball. They ball right up instead of stretching out a lot more than other snakes do. That is typically how they rest and also how they stay safe. Ball pythons will use their heavy bodies that they have. They're quite a stumpy and heavy bodied snake, and they have small heads, right, for their body size. So these guys will oftentimes use their heavy bodies and hide underneath. And if I boop her snoot a little bit, maybe she won't do it because she's not afraid of me, but she will, in the wild, they will hide underneath themselves. They'll hide their head underneath their heavy bodies for protection. And that's almost like a tortoise in its shell, right? Or at least protected by part of the shell, right? Or a turtle, right? It's really, really similar. It's the same concept. That's going to keep them safe, hopefully, right? Because your head, of course, is your most important part. And this animal does not regenerate anything at all. So if she were to get injured in the face or on any body part at all, she would not be able to regenerate or heal that very well. Snakes are pretty good healers of scratches and bumps because they do shed their skin about once a month. And most reptiles, of course, shed their skin about at that rate, but snakes shed their skin like clockwork and all in one piece. And so they do have a pretty rapid healing rate for small injuries like that. But as far as regenerating body parts, no, they cannot do that. Ooh, here's a good example. Dart frogs, absolutely one of my favorite animals too. Dart frogs do have very, very bright colors naturally in the wild. They still have some natural patterns to them sometimes, but dart frogs do want to stand out to warn all of their predators that they are poisonous to eat. So that is the purpose of that. Very good. Very, very good, Erica. Thank you for that. So Princess is quite beautiful, isn't she? She's wrapping around my wrist right now. These aren't really the best climbing snakes, but they can climb a little bit. I think they have a little fun with that, and they could climb like a fallen limb or a short little tiny tree in the wild or something like that. But most of the time, these guys are going to be found on the ground. They are an African species living in Africa. This, remember, is a Mexican species living in Mexico in the wild. Don't forget your food is up here. Food is up here. Food is up here. You can do it. I believe in you. She's like, oh my gosh, really? It's up here. Get it. Don't eat my finger, though. You can do it. Yum. She's like, where? I can't find it. You can do it, Ghost. They're floating right above you, you guys. Good thing she lives in the care of humans. So these guys, again, are an African. Oh, my goodness. You see what I mean? I think she is interested. She's just, not understanding where they are, I think. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's so cute. What wholesome content. Look at her little ghost body. I'll give them to you later. I'll give you some later. How about that? If you can't find those. So special. These guys are an African species. They usually live in Central Africa, in like grasslands, prairies, forests, things like that. And they live typically underneath something in a burrow or caved in somewhere most of the time. They mostly come out at night if they need to come out at all. And they are ambush predators. These guys are famous for kind of sitting still, waiting for food to pass by, and they can go a long time without eating. In the wild, they can go up to 6 months, even more, maybe even a year without eating. It wouldn't be ideal for them. They would definitely not want to do that if they can help it. But that's pretty normal for the wild, unfortunately, because resources are whatever you get, you get. And they are primarily rodent eaters. They're a little bit picky with what they eat. They're not a animal that can eat all sorts of things. Like a king snake can eat almost any animal that fits into their mouth. These guys too, right? Any animal that fits into their mouth, she can eat it. These guys are pretty specified with what they prefer. Rodents are going to be their number one favorite. They eat mice mostly, small rats, things like that. And other rodent species too, and other rodent-like mammals, small mammals. And also they will eat birds too. But that's about it for a ball python. They prefer warm-blooded animals. That's what they like to eat in the wild. So they will kind of sit around and wait for food to pass by or come into their burrow. And that's when they'll strike very quickly, right? And these guys are non-venomous. They don't have venom or poison. And they use their bodies to constrict. This is a python. So of course she has really strong muscles. And what they would do is reach out and grab their food, hang on to it, wrap around it with the first portion of her body. Very strong muscles will squeeze that animal and prepare it for eating, if you know what I mean. Their last hug of their life. Very, very tight squeeze. And then they will eat their prey whole. This snake can actually eat an animal up to, I would say, 4 times the size of her head at this size. And when they are bigger, they can eat things even bigger than that. They do have specialized jaws, which can expand very easily. Her jaw is not one solid piece like our jaw. If you take a little knock on your jaw here, you will feel that it's one solid piece. We don't have like a gap right here, and we don't have a gap on top. A snake has both of those gaps. They have a gap on top and a gap down bottom, which is really, really flexible. And they can basically do like this with their jaw, open it right up nice and wide. Like that. And they also have very stretchy ligaments in their jaw right here, which can open up nice and big. So nice and big and wide this way, and nice and wide this way, making tons and tons of room. They walk their food down their throats with their own jaws. And they do have teeth. This species, even though they're non-venomous, they do have teeth, and their teeth are only designed for grabbing on, but it also helps to push the food down, having that whole system. And then they don't have to eat for a long time because they just ate a huge meal 4 times the size of their head. That would be like us eating a full watermelon in one bite, which is not possible for a human. Please do not do that. Are they ambush predators? Absolutely. Good job. I did read your mind. It's so good to see you, Jeffrey. It's been a while since you've been on the show asking questions and leaving comments. I really enjoy your comments and questions, as I do all of my comments and questions from my followers. Anyway, so these guys definitely are ambush predators. The very definition of ambush predator for sure. They sit and wait for something to walk by and then bam, ambush. And reach out and grab, squeeze, and swallow whole. Pretty awesome. But that is how most pythons do, especially ball pythons. And that's what they're specialized in, right? Non-venomous, right? So they need some way to do away with their prey. Ball pythons are very particular about their prey being killed and done completely dead, not breathing, not moving. They're a little bit shy that way. They don't want to risk getting injured by their prey. So they always make sure it's all the way passed away. And then they eat it. The tongue is amazing. Yes, so snakes smell with their tongue. As far as their senses go, snakes do not have external ears. They have internal ears, which are used for balance and maybe like a little bit of hearing, but they don't hear great. They do feel, though. They have a great sense of touch, and they can feel vibrations, especially if they're on the ground and they feel something walking by or moving. They can definitely feel that. And they can probably hear a little bit because hearing is really just vibrations, right? But they don't have ears to hear. That is really not a thing with snakes. So instead of having great ears and hearing, they have a great sense of smell. Their smell is via the tongue. Check it out. Check it out. See if she's in focus. Is she? Slightly. With this setup, it's hard to have everything in focus because there's so many things for the camera to concentrate on. But she does have a beautiful forked tongue, which is very slender and has 2 points on the end of it. That's what forked means. I'm trying to hold her in view. And that picks up scent particles. Because it's forked in 2 points, she can smell directionally, which is like us having ears on either side of our head. We hear in 2 directions around our head, right? She has 2 points on the end of her tongue, so she can smell in 2 directions very, very easily. And that's how they kind of navigate their world around them, and also how they hunt and figure out what's going on and where the food is and where to strike. They also have amazing heat sensing pits, which are unique to pythons and some other types of snakes. And like pit vipers, for example, they have heat sensing pits. Trying to make sure you can see them. Those little holes on the sides of her lips. It's really easy to see on the white snake here, the white ivory colored ball python, right? Oh, sorry, she's out of view. This way. Go this way, Amanda. But you can see those holes. Those are heat sensing pits, which can pick up body heat of mammals and birds that she would hunt, but mostly mammals. What else? But that sense of smell is amazing via the tongue. Also, they do have eyes that always are open and always looking around, just like Ghost. Ghost doesn't have any eyelids either, but snakes don't either, and that's all snakes, not just, well, like amphibians in general. When they metamorphosize, they typically get eyelids, like frogs and salamanders in general typically have eyelids if they aren't weirdos like the axolotl. But for snakes, they never have eyelids. They have spectacle scales, which are a specialized clear see-through scale that they have over their eyes, so they don't have to worry about blinking or keeping their eyes moisturized. It's always ready to go. And another problem with that, though, is they cannot shut their eyes, so they're always looking around. However, a snake's eyes are pretty poor when it comes to their vision. They can see. There's no doubt about it. They can definitely see. However, if she were blind, she could still get along very, very well with just her sense of smell and heat pits, especially for a ball python. But they can see some. They don't see color, and they kind of see very blurry, but it still helps them a little bit. But they never blink. You cannot win a staring contest with a snake of any sort. She's so beautiful. Thank you so much. I think so too. And again, she's a great candidate for animal therapy. Believe it or not, snakes can be great at animal therapy, especially exposure therapy, to help you get rid of your fears. I don't think anybody watching right now that's commenting is afraid of her. But if you know of anybody that would benefit from a little bit of therapy with a snake or a lizard or a spider, there's all sorts of animals we can help you out with. I promise you it will be really beneficial to you. And even if you do like snakes, we can just give you some time with Princess or Prince or some of our other snakes and animals, and you can actually hold them and just enjoy yourself. And that's also therapeutic too. Okay, Princess, you did fantastic. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments further on her. I think she's getting ready to go into shed. And she'll look even more white and beautiful after that, because they do have to kind of dull down to go into shed. Their skin starts to become opaque. Their eyes will become cloudy. Prince, the other ball python, is actually in shed right now, and it's really obvious that he's in shed, but I think she's going into shed too. Not really. And to my knowledge, most snakes do not hunt just by vision. All snakes can see, but their vision is slightly poor. It's pretty blurry, and no snake, to my knowledge, sees in color. I could be wrong, but to my knowledge, no. And I think they all hunt with either their sense of smell with the tongue or by heat pits. So snakes that live in caves that hunt bats, for example, they typically have the heat pits for sensing the heat of those warm-blooded bats, right? So to my knowledge, I don't believe that their primary sense is going to be their vision in any snake, if that makes sense. I hope that answers your question, Jeffrey. Good question. I could be wrong. So please correct me if I'm wrong. All you herpetologists out there, I definitely love to learn all the time. So who knows? But to my knowledge, no. Sense of smell is always number one for a snake. And some of the snakes have those heat sensing pits, like I said, which is absolutely amazing, in my opinion. Okay, are we ready to meet one more exciting animal? Again, we are showing you guys some animals that do have versions of themselves in the wild, but they are actually a different color than they would be in the wild. And by default, we've met all very light colored animals. So let's go ahead and meet one more. I do have to step out of the room just for a couple seconds, and I shall return with our next animal, okay? I'll be right back. Yay, it's a ferret. Thor's back on the show. It's been a while since Thor was on the show. His brother Loki was on here not too long ago, and he knows what's going to happen next. He's going to get lots of treats for being out here and being himself. So this is Thor, one of our ferrets. We do have another ferret named Loki. Loki is very dark with a mask, and that is actually how they look in the wild. And when I say the wild, the ferret actually comes from a species called the European polecat, and that is a species of weasel that the ferret actually comes from originally, because the ferrets, as we know them now, are domestic. And then there's one more species of ferret in the United States called the black-footed ferret, which is really cool as well. They're kind of a light tannish brown with a black mask, and they have black feet, of course, and a black tail, kind of like a Siamese cat, like points on them. And that is another endangered species as well, just like ghost. But that's a North American species. The species that these guys come from is called the European polecat, of course, from Europe. And now they are a domestic animal, but they're still related to weasels out there in the wild. Ferrets are in the weasel family 100%. They are mustelids, which is the fancy word for a weasel. And weasels include polecats, ferrets, badgers, wolverines, otters, ermines. There's so many of them, and they're really awesome. Ferrets and all other mustelids are usually carnivores. They are obligate carnivores, and most of them are. I believe some of them are carnivores and can still eat a little bit of vegetables here and there, but it's super rare. Like I know otters actually in zoos do eat a little bit of vegetation. I don't know why. I've never really learned why, and I don't know if that's in the wild as well, but I haven't really done a lot of research on that. But for the most part, they are obligate carnivores, especially ferrets and other weasel types. They are eating meat and only meat, and they are hunters. They can scavenge a little bit, but they are very good at hunting. In fact, the domestic ferret was basically domesticated or brought into human care or with humans around 2,500 to 3,000 years ago, a long time ago, right? For the purposes of hunting with us. So they were bred and trained specifically for rabbit hunting, other game hunting, as well as vermin hunting, which means taking care of like rats and mice in people's homes and things like that. So getting rid of pests. They're amazing hunters. Thor, of course, is white. He technically would be a leucistic as well. He is not albino. He doesn't have red eyes. He has dark eyes, just like Princess. And he is what we call a dark-eyed white. When he was very young, he had a lot more silver on his body, which he's kind of grown out of. When ferrets are babies, they typically have a different coat color and markings sometimes than when they're going to look like what they're going to look like when they're adults. That doesn't always happen. Loki looks pretty much exactly the same. He has more white on his face on his mask now, but Loki has always been very, very dark. His coloration, there is another live stream that you can see with Loki on there, and there's also a creature feature featuring the ferret, specifically, just a little 1-minute spiel about ferrets. And you can see Loki, of course, and he is the wild type or natural color of a ferret as well. You guys still out there? If you have any questions, let me know. Wendy says his whiskers are cute and he's so fluffy and the little tongue licking is so cute. Thank you. Right now I'm feeding him a special treat, which they only get on programs, which is chicken flavored baby food. They also get it for training as well, if we're training something new. But for the most part, they do everything pretty well. They go into their travel crate pretty well, and they get their nails trimmed very, very easily. I just hold them and do their nails and things. They don't need a whole lot of treats for any of that. But maybe in the future, we will start training them some more different behaviors that we can show you guys. But for now, their main task, if you will, and job is to just sit still in my arms and lick food. And this keeps them busy while we're talking about them, and they can be proper animal ambassadors that way. Otherwise, ferrets are very wiggly. They want to be very active and run around all over the place, don't you? You just want to run around right now, and that would wreak havoc in this room. So we're not going to do that. So again, this is a domestic species. I don't recommend ferrets for everybody. They are great animal companions for the right family. Please don't just buy them for your kids. It's a lot of responsibility. They're almost like having a puppy on steroids. It's like a puppy and a kitten combined. They're very hyper when they're playing. They need a lot of playtime. We recommend at least 4 to 5 hours of playtime outside of their enclosure every single day. And I do recommend that most ferrets, not every single ferret, well, there's some exceptions to this rule, but most ferrets do better with a companion ferret as well. Thor and Loki have been together since they were very, very young. They came from the same exact source, and so they've known each other since they were little baby ferrets. So do all your proper research with adopting any animal companion, you guys, just like we always talk about. Now, ferrets are predators, and out there in the wild, the European polecat, which is kind of like the wolf to your domestic dog, the European polecat will hunt things like rabbits, rats, of course, birds, really any sort of smaller type animal that they can get a hold of. However, look at his body size. You can see his size here. He's a pretty hefty ferret, but in the wild, they would be around the same size as well for males. Females are smaller, but a ferret can actually hunt an animal up to 5 times their own body weight. Thor here weighs about 3 to 4 pounds. He does change seasonally sometimes. That's very normal for a ferret to be heavier in the winter and lighter in the summer. His brother Loki, excuse me, he's Thor. His brother Loki, the dark one, he weighs up to 5 pounds in the winter and can slim down to around 4 pounds sometimes. But if you times that by 4 or 5, that's how big of an animal they can actually hunt. They're amazing hunters. They have very sharp teeth. They're very intelligent hunters as well. They can figure out the best way to hunt these animals. They can weasel into any small spaces and go and get rabbits and all sorts of tunneling animals at their whim. Black-footed ferrets here in the United States are smaller than European polecats, and they go down into prairie dog tunnels and eat prairie dogs almost exclusively in the wild. That is what they usually eat. I'm going to check on your comments while he's snacking on his treats here because I forgot to go back to them. Oh, here's a good question. How many babies are typically in a ferret litter? The baby ferrets are actually called kits, like short for kitten, but it's K-I-T, kits. Pups are, I believe, other types of weasel type animals. I could be wrong, but I think pups do apply to other similar animals. I'm gonna have to look that up for you. As far as how many babies, they can have anything from like 2 all the way up to 12, just depending on the size of the litter and the fertility and all that. It can vary, just like dogs and cats. Are there any, sorry, that was a snake question. I thought you were asking if ferrets eat snakes, and the answer is yes. Ferrets will eat almost any animal they can catch. Mostly mammals and birds, but they can also eat lizards, snakes, all sorts of things. And of course, other weasels are famous for eating snakes and lizards too, right? Aren't they amazing? As far as their senses, they have all 5 senses, as you might imagine. They have a great sense of smell. They have a great sense of touch. They do have whiskers, just like a cat. Their whiskers are extremely important to them when tunneling underground, so they can figure out how wide they can fit. They can usually weasel into almost any hole they can get their head through, which is pretty awesome, almost like a rodent can. They do have great hearing as well. They have a great sense of taste. As you can see, he loves his food. Yum, yum. And their eyesight is probably their worst sense, but they still do have decent eyesight. To our knowledge, they don't have any color vision, though. So that is their senses in a nutshell. I mentioned that he is a predator of rabbits. Would he go after your Flemish rabbit? Absolutely. We do not let the ferrets hang out with any other animals of any kind in our collection whatsoever. Ferrets are amazing predators. So if you have ferrets out there in I almost said TV land, YouTube land, or Facebook land, or social media land. If you guys have ferrets, please do not let them ever mingle with your rabbits, your rats, really any prey type animals, snakes, lizards. Please do not let them play together. That is asking for an accident. They are very good predators and very instinctive, and they will hunt just for fun, just like cats do. So be very careful. They're extremely good at what they do. They are little killers. That's just naturally what they do. Absolutely, they could definitely eat Sandor, our Flemish giant. Even though Flemish giant rabbit is huge, they would definitely be able to do that. Rabbits are straight food for ferrets. So we don't let them play. No, he looks so innocent. That is their, it's a trick. It's a trap. He's not. Ferrets are very mischievous. Aren't you? You're very mischievous. I told everybody your secret. Ferrets are awfully cute. I think they're one of the cutest animals in the world, in my opinion, but they're extremely nosy, mischievous. They get into things. They like to destroy things. So if you have like ferrets in your home, you need to either ferret-proof your home and make sure no other small pets are around, or you can have like a ferret-proof room, which is a really cool idea for them as far as their care goes. We have a playpen for them. They play in when they're getting their exercise, and then they can also go out and harness sometimes and have a little exercise outside, supervised always. Ferrets also don't do well in heat, so we have to make sure that it's not too hot outside if we do take them on little trips sometimes. That's kind of rare. Their playpen is more than sufficient to give them exercise. And we can give them supervised time in a room when we're watching them closely like hawks, because they can get into a lot of things. And other than that, they're sleeping a lot. They do take lots and lots of naps. And of course, they get their food. We actually feed them twice a day here. And we recommend a raw diet for ferrets, although it's a little bit hard if your ferrets are already eating kibble to convert them over to raw. We don't recommend just doing that like cold turkey. And I don't mean feeding them turkey. I mean like without gradually, gradually changing them over to a raw diet. But raw diet is best for them because they are obligate carnivores. So we feed them what's called a balanced raw diet. So every single day there's a different calendar meal. So in the morning, they always get what we call bone-in food, which has bone included. That's right. These guys can eat raw bones. They do crunch up the bones and eat everything. Typically it's going to be chicken or something with kind of crispy bones, if you will. It's never cooked, though. It's really important not to feed them anything that's cooked, especially bone, because that can splinter and hurt them. But raw bone is very natural for them to eat. So they get raw meals all around, but in the mornings, they typically get something with bones in it. And then every afternoon, there's something different, so they can get a balanced raw diet. Ideally, your ferrets would be eating whole food items like whole rats, whole rabbits, whole chickens, whatever it may be. But of course, that's very expensive. So in order to counteract that, a lot of ferret experts out there have formulated a plan for raw feeding ferrets. So if you want more information on that, awesome. But it is hard to convert them over to raw when they're already eating kibble, because ferrets tend to imprint on the type of food that they were raised on. Luckily, these guys were raised on raw, so they got a healthy start from the beginning. Yeah, so that's what we feed them here. It's a very, very healthy diet for them. And they love it. They love their food. As you can see, he loves his chicken baby food as well. This is the only other really food item he gets besides his raw meat that he gets. Here's a good question. They can catch COVID, right? So yes, technically they can. Our ferrets are doing in-person programs again from a distance, as long as we are far away from far enough away from our audience members and things, and we don't really allow touching with them ever anyway. I did get advice from my veterinarian that it's actually okay to bring them back on programs again because COVID is getting better, believe it or not. So we are taking precaution, but they do need to get out and about to teach people about ferrets again. We never really allow touching with them anyway, and they're always a safe distance, 6 feet or more away from the audience members. So we're being cautious and careful, but technically, yes, they can get COVID. My vet did assure me, though, that throughout this entire year, he hasn't seen one case of COVID in a ferret personally, and he sees a lot of ferrets, and he hasn't heard of a big problem with them. So thank goodness, because technically they can get it. I don't know what it would take for them to technically get sick from it, but ferrets can actually get the common, all the common flus and things from us as well. So all the influenzas, if you will. They are vaccinated, though, of course, for what we can vaccinate them for. There's no COVID vaccine for ferrets yet, but they can get vaccinated, of course, for rabies. And they can get vaccinated for distemper and all the other kind of diseases that the distemper vaccine covers. I can't remember all of them, but there's several. But distemper is actually the worst disease in ferrets. They can actually get it very, very easily. Distemper can be airborne. So it's very important to get your ferrets vaccinated and follow your vet's instructions. But my vet reassured me that he thinks it's perfectly fine to bring them out again, usually outdoors and a safe distance away from humans. But that is a great question. He needs a little mask. Well, his brother Loki does have a natural mask. Right, but you are meant a face mask, right? That's very cute. Anybody have any other questions about Thor? He's awfully messy to hold. I just love them. He is so very beautiful, I think. So we do have a light-colored ferret named Thor right here, and our other ferret's name is Loki, of course. Thor and Loki. That's a great name combination, if I do say so myself. Right, Thor. Can you sit still for 2 seconds? Just kind of look at the beautiful axolotl over here. So again, we're meeting animals that aren't necessarily the color they would be in the wild, right? So fun thing about ferrets, when they became domesticated, spontaneously they would get albino ferrets sometimes. And the albino ferrets would actually get very lucky. They wouldn't have to hunt. They got to be pets in people's homes. So that's how ferrets first started becoming pets, was from white albino ferrets, similar to this, but he's not albino, right? But from the white coloration, because they would stand out too much in the field most of the time, unless it's snowing, I guess, for hunting purposes. So usually the hunters would give them away to very rich people or the people that they worked for and things like that. The lords and ladies and kings and queens would end up with ferret pets that were white. In fact, there's a few old paintings of very royal looking people with pet ferrets that are white. That was very, very common back then. So that is why they think that ferrets started becoming household pets as opposed to just being hunting animals, you know, hunting game and things like that, was because of the spontaneous white ones that they would get. So we have the white ferrets to thank for that, because it was kind of like a status symbol, if you will. And also it was impractical to hunt with the light-colored ferrets because, again, they would stand out on the field most of the year. So they would usually give them away. Isn't that neat? His eyes look wet. Yes, they do. They tend to get wet eyes sometimes. I don't know why. That's very normal for ferrets. I'm sure he will wipe his eyes in a little bit. And it is definitely wet. Okay, I'm going to go and put Thor away. And then I will say my goodbyes. One more treat. He's not crying, I promise. He is okay. Oh, so emotional. So emotional. They tend to get wetness in their eyes sometimes. Oh, it's like all of us, I guess. Please don't cry. Please don't cry. There's food on your nose. Say goodbye to your adoring fans. You are absolutely cute. I'll be right back, you guys, in just a moment. All right. I hope you enjoyed all of our animals today, and it's been really fun having you guys on the show once again. No, thank you, Wendy. You're fantastic. And thank you to everybody that joined today. Remember, if you have time and you want to visit us this weekend in New Braunfels, if you're in that area, and you want to participate in the Once Upon a Party Extravaganza going on this Saturday, please stop by onceinawild.com and click on that event block there, and you will see if there are any tickets left. I sure hope there are. We made an announcement today. There were a few tickets left today, and there should be, but it is a limited event, so please get your tickets ahead of time, and hopefully we'll see you guys there. And if any of our fans already have their tickets out there and you're watching right now, we will see you there, and we're very excited about this weekend. So stay tuned for lots of fun pictures and things like that. Check out all of our social media for some cool announcements coming up very, very soon that we're very excited to announce very, very, very soon. And maybe next week I'll announce it officially on the live stream. But stay tuned for some exciting stuff all around. And I hope you really enjoyed Ghost. I'm going to give her one more piece of food because I think she just didn't see those. She heard me here. She can hear the, the little food jar. I'm going to give her one because I'm a sucker. Here you go, Ghost. Would you like one? Here you go. Oh, yeah. You missed, though. There you go. Good job, Ghost. And thank you to everybody out there in social media land. And we'll see you guys next time here at Once in a Wild, you guys. Bye. We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing. Once in a while. Together. Once in a while. I want to hear you say. Once in a while. Never fun for me and you. We'll see everybody next week, next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central. See you then. Bye, everybody.